Hello, this video will give faculty an overview of how to use intelligent agents within Brightspace by D2L. Intelligent agents can be set up to send the student a D2L email when they have or haven't taken a certain action in the course. It is important to know that it's going to send them a D2L email and not a Gordon email. This would be set up by the instructor to automatically run and send when the student has met a certain qualification or when the student has not met a certain qualification. And this can be used for logging into the system, logging into the course, or completing or not completing a certain activity in the course. So some examples might be that the intelligent agent auto runs and sends students an email when they haven't logged into the system for a certain amount of days. Maybe the teacher says if the student hasn't logged in 3 days, send them an email reminding them that they need to be logging in. The other option might be doing it for certain assignments. So the intelligent agent automatically sends a student an email when they score a certain way on the exam. It might be that if they score 70% or higher, they get an email saying congratulations, you did great on the exam. If they score lower than 70%, they get an email with some extra resources to help them later on. The first step is to log into your course. From there, you want to choose Course Admin, and then you want to find the Intelligent Agents link under Communication. So you see I have a couple of intelligent agents already set up, one for those who have failed a certain quiz, haven't logged in a certain amount of time, and those who have passed the quiz. So let's set up some new ones. I'm going to choose New, and I want to give the agent a name. So I will say, haven't logged into the course in 3 days. I can add a description if I need more of a description than what is already here. I want to check if I want this agent to be enabled or not, so auto set to run. And then I'm going to choose my criteria. So all of this, number one, is the criteria. So you can choose different pieces here. First of all, you want to define who's going to get this email. Most of the time, it's going to be okay if you do all users visible in the class list. If you have other people who are not students in your class list, things like outside observers, other instructors, designer roles, things like that, it might be safer to specify the roles and choose only the students. So only the students would be getting this email, not others, instructors, designers, people who are in the course that are using it to copy over, that kind of thing, because that could get confusing for them. So I would recommend changing the role in class list to users with specific roles and only students. Then we're going to choose what type of intelligent agent we want to send. Do we want to send one for login activity? Now this is login to all of D2L, the entire course. Or I'm sorry, the entire program. This one is course activity, so logging into this particular course itself, which is probably what you'll use more likely. And then you have release conditions, which are going to be conditions that are if they've done or acted a certain way on a certain activity. So scored a certain way on an activity, didn't score a certain way on an activity, that kind of thing. Didn't look at this file, did look at this file, that kind of thing. So let's get started just by doing the one for the course activity. So having logged into a certain course. So I can send an email based upon they have not accessed the course in X amount of days or they have accessed the course in X amount of days. So just make sure you're reading it carefully and choosing the correct one. To align with the title of my intelligent agent, I want to choose, I want to send an email based upon when the user has not accessed a course in a certain amount of days, in this case 3 days. So that's the only one I'm going to choose here. Then I want to scroll down, and under the second step, I want to choose what type of actions are going to be taken. So the first one is to take this action only the first time the agent, the first time the user meets this criteria. So say that it runs today and the user meets this criteria, they get an email saying it. Say that in 3 days they still haven't logged in and it runs again next week and they still haven't met the criteria, it won't send them an additional email. It only does it the first time they meet that criteria. Or you can choose it to where every single time this agent is run and they meet that criteria, it's going to send them an email. So say that we run it today, they haven't logged in 3 days, they get the email. Next week it runs again on Monday. They still haven't logged in, they get an additional email. So it depends on how you want it to be set as to when they're going to keep getting that repetition. So I'm going to choose take action every time this is enabled, which probably makes sense for logging in, because if they haven't logged in, you want them to keep getting messages to say, hey, you need to log in. All right, the next one is sending that actual email and what criteria you want to set up for that. So I'm going to send an email when the criteria is satisfied. And then I'm going to change who it is to and what is going to be written in the actual email itself. Notice by default the email is going to come from this email, and if they try to reply to this email, it's going to go to this email and it's not going to be something that they can reply to. You can actually set it up to where if you want this, if you want them to be able to reply to this email and you want it to go to your D2O email, you can actually set that up. And I'll show you how to do that in a second because it's on additional page. You can't set it up to where they would, if they, because this will go to their D2O email. If they reply, it will go back to your D2O email. It'll never go to your Gordon email because remember the D2O email and the Gordon email are totally separate. But you can set it up to where they can reply to your D2L email. I'll show you how to do that in a second, but this is by default. Okay, so to put in the to area, this is very important. You want it to go to anybody who meets that criteria. So to do that, if you choose what special email addresses can I use, you'll get a little pop-up and this will give you some more information. So you want to use initiating user, which is a user who meets basically that criteria for that the agent's criteria that has been set forth. So I want to copy this, and this is what I'm going to put in the to section. It's important that you also put the braces in there before and after as well. So we're just going to paste that in. That's going to be our to. And then subject area, haven't logged in or whatever you would like. And then you can put in the message here. You can make just a blanketed message, but what you can actually do is use some more replacement strings. This is called a replacement string, to where the system will automatically put that student's certain criteria into the email and make it look a lot more personalized. So for example, I could say hello, and if I choose what replacement strings can I use, it will give me some options that I can use here. So one might be the first name of the initiating user. So it would say, hello, Jane, hello, Mark, or whatever, and it would call them by their name. So in that case, I might want to highlight this, including the braces, and say hello, and it's automatically going to pull in the system whatever their name is. So hello, Mark, hello, Jane, hello, whoever it is. I see you haven't logged into the course in a while. You haven't logged in since. And if I look at my replacement string options, notice that one of the replacement strings is the last course access date, so the date that the initiating user last accessed this particular course. Now don't confuse that with the date the initiating user last logged in. This is for the system, this is for your particular course. So you may want to make sure that you're using the correct one. Alright, so I'll choose that. You haven't logged in since this date. Make sure to log in often to complete assignments on time. All right, and so from here, what I can also do if I wanted to, if you wanted to make it really personalized, you could insert stuff and you could create a video note. So you could record a video note here if you wanted to and say something like, hey, I see that you haven't logged into the course in a while. It's very important that you do so. Please make sure to log in and do these assignments X, Y, and Z. And then you could just give that a title. You could say something like haven't logged in so that you can search it for later. You do want to make sure to put English into auto-generate captions to be fully accessible. And it will actually insert that video right there. So not only do they get an email with all this specific information to them, they actually get a video as well. So some other replacement strings that you might use, some of them are more common than others. Things like the first name, maybe the last name, the date login. Those are the most common ones. You could pull the name of the organization. You probably won't use these org codes a lot. You could put the start date or the end date of the specific course, the link to the course, but mainly the first name, last name, and the logins are what you would use more often. All right, so that's going to be what the email they're going to get, and I can attach documents if I wanted to as well. All right, scrolling on down, now I'm going to look at how I'm going to schedule this. So when is this going to run? So I want to use a schedule, and I'm going to set this schedule. And this really makes sense if you're going to have it sent over and over and over to where it's automatically going to be checking every so often. So it can be daily, weekly, monthly, or annually. I would like to do it weekly. And I want to do it repeat every 1 week, so once a week. And I want it to repeat on Mondays. And I can even decide, I want it to start. I want it to start now, and I want it to end maybe on 5/1. It is important to have an end date on the, once the course kind of wraps up. So, if this course ends on May 1st, this is the last time I want it sent, so that the student doesn't keep getting emails about not logging in when the course is over, and they really shouldn't be logging in anymore. So you do want to make sure to have an end date here to stop the intelligent agent from sending any more emails. Okay, so now I picked this to where it's going to repeat every 1 week on Monday. So remember my setting from earlier, it's going to send an email every time they meet that criteria. So say the first week they meet that criteria, they get an email. The second week they still haven't logged in, they still meet the criteria, they get they get an email again. Say the third week they do meet that criteria, great, they don't get an email. Say the fourth week they meet that criteria again, they're going to get an email again. So every time they meet that criteria, they're going to get an email. That's what I had set up. You can set it up to where they only get that one email the first time and then they never get any others. It's really up to you on that one. All right, so we're going to update that. We're going to save and close. And now our agent is ready to be sent. And you'll see the next run date, it's going to be set to run later today. I'll show you in a second how you can manually run it if you want to. So maybe you don't want to wait till later today for it to run, or maybe you want to run one that's kind of off sync. Maybe you have it set every Monday and you want to run it on a Tuesday for some reason. You can run it if you want to manually push it from there. But before we get into that, let me show you where you can edit the email, because if you remember, let's edit this really quick. If you remember, the email here is automatically sent to be do not reply. So if you want them to be able to respond back to you, by default it's not going to be set that way. If you do want them to be able to respond back to you, you can come up to settings, and you can set custom values here, and you want to make sure in both of these areas to put your D2L email. So it's going to be your Gordon email username at gordonstate.vue.usg.edu. So you want to put it for both of them. Again, do not put your Gordon email in here because it can't go back and forth. You can't send from D2L to Gordon email, from Gordon email to D2L. So make sure you're using, this would be your D2L email address. So make sure to use that one. All right, so I'm going to save that. And now that is set to go. And now let's look at the options for actually running our agent. So if I'm going to choose this drop down, I can choose to do a practice run. And what a practice run will do is it will not actually send the emails to the students, but it will let me see who would have met that criteria. So if I'm just interested in seeing if I ran this now, who would meet it, but I don't actually want to send the emails, you can choose to do that one. Or if you actually do want to run now and run it manually, you can choose to do it that way. Also, the intelligent agents are set up that when you copy your course over from D2L, they're set up to not automatically be enabled. And that's because we don't want emails automatically sending. If maybe you wanted to set these up to send maybe at midterm till later, we don't want them automatically sending, initially right out the gates. So if you see this icon, if you hover over it, it will say that it is not enabled. So if you wanted to enable it after you do a course copy, you would just come here and edit it. And then you can change any information. A lot of times you're probably going to want to change the schedule here, so that you'll put in the new date of the last date that it will be sent, because the end date will have copied over and it wouldn't be correct. But once you fix all of that, you'll be able to check agent is enabled, and that will enable it to be actually start being sent for this particular course. All right, so let's automatically run now. So we're just going to manually run it. Again, if you have it on a schedule, it will be sent automatically. You don't have to take this action, but this is just because I don't want to wait around for it to send today, so I'm going to go ahead and run it. If you hover over this, it is set to manually run. So actually, if you give it just a couple of minutes, it will go ahead and run, and you'll be able to see some data on it. All right, so the agent has run. You see that the last run date was just now. Later on, it will actually tell you the date. It'll tell you the next run date, and it will tell you the date that it last ran. But it had 4 users identified. So it did go ahead and send those emails, but I can click here to see what users were identified. It gives me their name, and I can actually click here and see the email that was sent to them. So you see that it was sent from my my D2L email to this person's D2L email. And notice that it did fill in the pieces here. So it gives the first name. I see that you've not logged into the course a while. You haven't logged in since never. So this person has never logged into the course. And then there's the video for them. Notice this person has their name, and it says that they haven't logged in since this particular date. So that was automatically sent for them. Also notice that you get an email to your own D2L email, and it will just basically tell you that the agent has been run. And that's really helpful in cases of you have this set to auto run every Monday, and on the 5th or 6th Monday you've kind of forgotten that it's set to auto run. You'll get an email saying, hey, it has been run. You might want to go back and check out the data on it, and you can always go to check out the data by going to your intelligent agents area and then looking at the 4 users identified there. Now, after a while, this will get replaced, every week when it runs. So you might want to see just over time who was getting this email, and who, hasn't been logging into the course day, kind of repeat offenders, if you will. So you can choose this, and you can choose view history, and you'll be able to see when it was run. So this one was only run the first time, but you'll see a listing of all the different dates that it was run, and then you'll be able to click on those different users, and you'll be able to see if it was a manual run or an automatic run that was set to run every Monday or whatever. And you'll be able to see over time who those users were, if you can see, who's falling into those categories multiple times. If you want that data outside of D2L, you can actually export that data by coming into export history, and it will give it to you. You can choose, whichever one you want, and you can choose the date range. It will give it to you in an Excel format that you can edit and then manipulate to only show a certain student or to look at patterns over time. All right, so let's set up one more agent, and let's do one using the content area. So we'll go to new, and a lot of this information is going to be the same. But this one I want to set up an agent for. They haven't completed a certain quiz. All right, it's enabled. In this case, I'm looking at a course activity. Oh, I'm sorry, no, I'm not. I'm looking at a release condition. So I'm going to create and attach. And in this case, I want to where they have no completed quiz attempt. So if you look at these options, you can see many different ways that you can use intelligent agents. They've made a grade on a certain item. They've scored a certain way on a rubric. They scored a certain way on a quiz. They have completed a quiz attempt. They haven't completed a quiz attempt. They have posted in a discussion. They haven't posted in a discussion. They visited a certain topic. They visited all the topics in the course. They haven't completed a certain topic. they have earned a certain award. Lots of options here, but I'm just going to choose this one that they haven't completed a quiz. And I choose what quiz. Okay, so they haven't completed the pretest. And then now I want this, maybe I only want this one run just the first time. And I'm going to send an email. Notice it's going to auto-populate since I changed it in my settings. Here I want to choose the initiating user. Here I've created my email using my replacement strings of the first name here. And then I want to use the schedule, and maybe this is due in 2 weeks, so I won't only want to repeat it on Monday for 2 weeks. So say that the assignment is due in 2 weeks, so I don't want it repeating for too long. So I'll have it set to just repeat, just those 2 weeks before it's due. All right, so I save and close. Here it is set to run. I can be patient and let it run later today, or if I don't want to be patient to let it run later today, I can go ahead and have it manually run, give it just a few minutes, and it will run and give me the data for it. All right, so it ran. I can choose 4 users identified. I'm able to see who they were, and then I'm able to see the email that got sent to them. If you want to see it from a student's view, I'm logged in now as a student. I go to the D2L email. Notice it is sent from my D2L email. We'll open this up. The student will be able to see their notice. It has filled in their information, included their video. Since I have it set to reply to me, they can choose reply to that email and it will auto-populate to my email. They can type their email and it will send it right back to me to kind of have that chain of communication going on now.